Welcome to Real Talk, where I give real answers to real questions from real worship leaders. If you are a real worship leader with a real question and you want a real answer, head right here and submit your question, and I might answer it on a future episode. Got some good questions this week. Let's talk about it. Hi, Spencer. I have one vocalist on our team that is constantly telling other vocalists which part they should be singing. And I had feedback a few weeks ago that folks don't want to join my team because of the toxic environment. Sad face. I've asked for this to stop, but found it is continuing anyway. My next step is to pull this person aside and reiterate my wishes, but I would love to have your input. I know this person probably thinks they're helping, but they're coming off as bossy and overbearing to everyone else, and that is not the heart or attitude that I want to have on my team. Please help. Well, that sounds like a very frustrating situation, and this is when it gets hard to be a leader. It's easy to be a leader when everything's going well. It's hard to be a leader when you have somebody causing problems on your team and then you have to have a difficult conversation with them. But what is the best policy in situations like this? It is clarity. First of all, let me affirm that you should be disturbed by this, because sometimes we second guess ourselves and we're like, and I hear it in your question, it's like, well, I know that this person is just trying to help, but it's not coming off right. I hear that, and maybe that's true. Maybe they're just trying to help, but the fact is it's not coming off right. And we can try to be as helpful as we can, but if we're being annoying while we're doing it, then we're actually being unhelpful. So we aren't actually helping people, and it sounds like she's being unhelpful, and people don't want her advice. And if she's just some random person on the team and nobody solicited her advice, she's giving unsolicited advice, and it's not really her place to give advice. And so you've already talked to her about this once. So I like to think about it this way. Like, the first time I talk to you about something, it's going to be nice, right? If I have to talk to you about it again, it's not going to be mean, but it's going to be more direct. And so I like to give people the benefit of the doubt and think, if I hint at something, and maybe more than a hint, I hope you weren't just like, I don't even know how you would hint at that situation, but it sounds like it was more than a hint. But I like to give people the benefit of the doubt and be like, people don't really like it when you tell them what part to sing, and it's not really your responsibility to do that. So maybe just back off of that for a little bit. And I try to give people the benefit of the doubt like that, and I try to be nice, but I've learned that more and more people just aren't getting the pictures these days whenever you try to be nice, and so you have to be a little bit more direct, and then they think that you're mean. But that doesn't mean that you're a mean person. It means that they weren't socially aware enough to take the hint the first time, and so now you have to be more direct, and it doesn't mean that you have to be mean in that. So the second step, what do you do now? You've told them nicely once and hinted at it strongly. Now I would pull this person aside and say, hey, I talked to you a couple of weeks ago. I tried to bring it up. People really don't like it when you tell them what part to sing. And it's not like, I'll handle that stuff. I try to send out those parts in advance so that people know what they're going to sing. And I appreciate you trying to help, but people, they don't want that advice. And so if you could just, I need you to stop, offering your advice on what parts they should sing. We want people to be able to make their own decisions, and these people, they know what part they want to sing, and they don't need you to tell them to change it. Okay, so if you can just back off on that, we would really appreciate that. Just worry about your own position for right now. And I know that seems direct, and I would tailor that to whoever I was speaking to, because different people have different personalities. I might soften it a little bit for some people, but this person's probably pretty direct if they think that they can tell everybody what to do. And so I'd probably be more direct with them. But take the sentiment of that response and tune it to the person in front of you. And so I'd probably tell them again a little bit more direct. And then maybe if it still happens a third time, I would be even more direct with them and say, listen, we've talked about this 2 times. You keep telling people what to sing. They don't want to hear it. I don't need you to tell them what to sing. And if it keeps happening, then I can't have you on the team anymore because it's causing more problems than it's helping. And so if it's that kind of problem, because that's a big deal to be like, oh, you can't be on the team because you're causing problems. So I don't want you to hear this, and if they're just like, hey, maybe you should try this part singing here, then don't respond in this way. But I don't have the full context. And I assume the worst case scenario, especially the way that you phrased the question. So that's how I would do it. First time, which you've already done, nice, gently hint at it. Second time, more direct. Say people do not like when you tell them what to do, so please stop doing it. And then third time, there's a consequence if you do not stop this. I've already warned you 2 times, 3 times, 3 strikes and you're out. So please do not do it again, or I cannot have you on the team anymore. And like I said, this isn't the fun part about being a leader of a team, but if we want to protect the health of our team, then we need to take care of them. And I know that moment, that third conversation, feels really hard, but I see so many worship leaders who end up hating their ministry because there is some problem person on the team, and instead of bearing the week-long struggle of I kicked this person off my team and now it's awkward when I see them at church, instead of bearing that struggle for a week, we try to endure it for a year and a half, and it's way worse, not just for us, but for the rest of our team, if we would just get rid of the problem person, if they are indeed a problem person. So, being a worship team leader is not always fun, not always easy, but sometimes we have to make the hard decisions. That's what it means to be a leader. Our worship ministry is lacking more musicians. Options we spoke about include using multi-tracks, also live streaming in musicians from other states that are willing to do this. Just not sure how this would work out. Our congregation is older, but they love to worship. Raymond. So the way that you phrase the question, our worship ministry is lacking more musicians, I assume that you have some musicians. If you don't have any musicians, then you would have said, we don't have any musicians, so we're going to do this. So I would say use what you have. I think there's this temptation that we need to have this full band, and you didn't specify how many musicians you have. And I'm also not sure what style of music you do, but you don't need a full band to worship. If your congregation is older and they truly love to worship, then they're going to worship whether it's just a guy and a keyboard or a girl on an acoustic guitar or whatever it is. You don't need a full band to worship God. I'll just say that unequivocally. You do not need a full band to worship God. You don't even need an instrument. You can just sing some songs together. Is that ideal? Probably not, but it's not like you add 7 more people to your worship team and your worship gets better or something. And so I'm always an advocate for using what you have in your church. You don't need a full band every Sunday. You don't need it to worship God. You can lead it with just an acoustic guitar. If you have 2 musicians, acoustic guitar and a keyboard, and it's amazing, and it will be great. So don't be seduced by the big bands that you see all over social media, the big churches in your area, and think that, not that there's anything wrong with those, but don't think that equates to better worship than what you can do with the people that you already have in your church. So if you want, you can use multi-tracks, but I think multi-tracks most of the time are better utilized to support the sound of a larger band already. If it's just you and an acoustic guitar or you and a keyboard, you're not adding multi-tracks in so that you can get drums and bass and electric guitar. I always find that kind of strange. Just use what you have. And then as far as live streaming in musicians from other states, I'm not really sure how that would work. I've never seen that work before. That I don't think that would work technologically. I can't imagine what that would look like. So I don't think that that's the route you go either. Just use what you have and try to recruit people from within your congregation. If you need help recruiting people for your worship team, I've got the worship team toolkit. I'll link it down in the description below. In that, I give you my application form and my code of conduct, because I feel like if you have those 2 things, the reason that a lot of people can't recruit volunteers is because they don't have a process for people to go through. And so you're unsure and you never ask people. And if you do ask people, you don't know what the next step is. And so in this, I give you basically my step-by-step process for getting somebody to join the worship team. So check that out down in the description below, and I think that that might help you out, and you can use that to try to get more members on your worship team. But until then, your worship is still worship. It's just fine, with just you and another person. So don't be afraid to just lean into what you have, especially for this season. So like I said, check out the worship team toolkit linked down in the description below. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.